I don't think you should kid yourself. Like, if you built a product in 3 months, 6 months, it's not going to be sticky, right? Because you've done it that quickly. So
I'm looking for this exact product and your product does what they want. And then you'll go, oh, cool. Yeah, my product does that. And you'll paste a message and it's just immediately removed because it's considered, like, hang on, but the person was literally asking for what I'm selling. There's definitely some challenges around that if you're not a regular Reddit user and Wikipedia.
people are losing money because of this, right? And if you even are presenting some sort of solution that can either like help stop them from losing money or like make more money, people are going to pay attention, I think.
I felt like we just disappeared off the face of the planet and couldn't really figure out what happened. And then I assume it's like as part of this move towards people starting to use AI for search.
Yeah, for sure. It's something we're working on. It's changing so quickly. The tactics and the strategies that work for traditional search are like pretty consistent for the most part. And what we're seeing is that the sources and the citations that are being used across ChatGPT, for example, are changing almost like month on month in some weeks.
Today, my guest is Forsyth, founder of Haul, the product which is helping your business to be discovered on ChatGPT and other AI platforms. We dig into how AI search is disrupting traditional SEO, why Reddit and Wikipedia matter more than ever, and into the critical pivot that turned Haul from a community platform into an AI visibility powerhouse. If you're wondering why your business isn't showing up in ChatGPT and other search, or you want it to perform better, you will not want to miss this episode. Enjoy the show. Before we jump in, I just wanted to say thank you so much for listening. I genuinely believe in creating a world with more founders and sincerely believe that the tips and lessons that the founders are sharing with you will help you to either start or grow your own business, whatever stage you're at. That said, I'm effectively treating this as a startup. I'm trying to grow this podcast. And the free thing that you can do to help me today, if you found anything valuable, is to subscribe, follow this podcast. I've always found it really cringy when other creators say this, but now that I'm in a position, I totally get it. It would mean the world. Thank you. Welcome to the More Founders Show with me, Dave Berner. Today, my guest is Forsyth, founder of Haul, the app which is going to help your product get more visibility in AI. So welcome, Kai.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me, Dave.
So we were talking a little bit just before this, and I was saying, well, what is the right term? Is it AEO, JEO, GEO? And I liked your summary, which was AI visibility. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about what Haul does in kind of your words and how it aids with AI visibility.
Yeah, for sure. I guess a lot of people are coming from this perspective or this context around traditional search optimization, so SEO, and obviously consumer conversational AI platforms like ChatGPT have come about lately, and a lot of the tasks and questions and things that people are doing every day are shifting from places that would have ordinarily been on Google to these consumer conversational AI platforms. And with that is, I guess, really like disrupted a lot of businesses like marketing channels effectively who rely on organic search and organic traffic from Google, capturing that click effectively through to their website, and then building some sort of funnel to eventually convert them into a lead or to a conversion or a customer or whatever makes sense for your business. So yeah, it's really like throwing a spanner in the works, and I guess has birthed this new sort of focus or emphasis around answer engine optimization, AEO, generative engine optimization. There's all these different acronyms, AI search optimization. At the end of the day, it's really just AI visibility. How can you make your brand and your website too, in some cases, become more prominent and more visible across these consumer conversational AI platforms?
And that's what Haul effectively solves, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's what Haul is doing. Haul lets businesses effectively monitor how they're showing up across a set of topics or themes or keywords. So if you're making a CRM, you'd be able to basically build out a set of questions that you can then track across the different consumer conversational AI platforms like ChatGPT, and then sort of assess how frequently you're appearing across that topic, and also your competitors too, right? And also which pages are being used as sources that these AI platforms are pulling from.
Mm-hmm. And will it also help you to, I guess one of the things I noticed is it's probably about 10 months ago, I felt like we just disappeared off the face of the planet and couldn't really figure out what happened. And then assume it's like as part of this move towards people starting to use AI for search, and then we would type search terms in and we're like, oh, we're not coming back in these results. Will Hall also kind of help you to increase that visibility or recommend how you could?
Yeah, for sure. It's something we're working on. I think the thing is that it's changing so quickly, right? I think like the tactics and the strategies that work for traditional search are like pretty consistent for the most part. And the top 10 blue links in Google are pretty consistent. I think what we're seeing is that the sources and the citations that are being used across ChatGPT, for example, are changing almost like month on month. In some weeks, it can be Reddit and social content can be really influential in where these AI platforms pull from in terms of the context and the answers they're providing. Wikipedia has like popped up recently as a really prominent citation. So we're trying to give directions on how you can leverage the different citation sources, both external to your website, like on places like Reddit, Wikipedia, review sites, but also on page, like the things you could be creating, like listicles and things like that. But yeah, at the moment, it's really about just like looking at what are the citations that we're surfacing through the analysis in Hall, and then how can you look at that information and basically use that to form hypotheses around like, okay, why is this stuff being cited? Maybe we can go and create similar content. Maybe we need to invest in Reddit. But it is hard, right? Because it's changing. It's changing. It's very volatile, and there's a lot of changes, right? So if you're like a brand or one of our customers, I think it can kind of be hard to say, we're going to go deep in like Reddit, because the longevity of that is sort of unclear at the moment with how fast things are changing. But it's part of what's exciting, I think, too. It's kind of feels like the early days of like SEO.
Yeah. And Reddit is unless you're already on there and you've kind of built up that history, it's quite a hard channel, or at least I found it's quite a hard channel to get into. To the point where you'll even see someone saying, I'm looking for this exact product, and your product does what they want. And then you'll go, oh, cool. Yeah, my product does that. And you'll paste a message and it's just immediately removed because it's considered like, hang on, but the person was literally asking for what I'm selling. There's definitely some challenges around that if you're not a regular Reddit user, and Wikipedia as well has its own challenges. Like you need to have certain amounts of credibility in articles, and there's a whole process. But I guess Reddit you can at least build up over time.
Yeah, Reddit's an interesting one, right? Like I think it depends on the subreddits. Like if there are particular industries or verticals that you're building in that have their own subreddits, or maybe there's like r/ like digital marketers or something, right? I think depending on the moderation preferences of those communities, it can be quite challenging. I think there's also challenges like around like if someone's looking for like recommendations for tools and that like thread is like 2 years old, it's kind of a bit weird for someone to be jumping in recommending tools like 2 years later, because it's sort of
Yeah.
obvious that that is being used as a source, and like it's pretty transparent about what's happening. So you can execute Reddit well, but I think it's about like basically monitoring things as they sort of happen and jumping in like an authentic way and like disclosing that, hey, like we're building this product, it might be helpful, but like here are some other interesting insights we've learned about our industry, and even just linking to other competitors too and just being transparent around that, I think is a good way to like do it in an authentic way rather than trying to game the system. I mean, the other thing that might make sense for a lot of companies too is you could create like your own subreddit for your customers to like get support through or to ask questions in. Might not make sense for like every software product, but and every vertical, but instead of maybe creating like a Discord community or a Slack community, depending on who you're servicing, it might actually make sense to be on Reddit potentially.
And that's because of the well, two things, I suppose. One, the currently it's being cited as a source, whereas I guess Slack communities, and I'm not sure on Discord, are they also effectively walled so that you couldn't access that content?
For sure, yeah. The content isn't like accessible in Google or indexable, and that content is kind of private to those ecosystems. Whereas Reddit is heavily influential in both Google search, but also in these AI platforms. So there are advantages with that, but it's really about when you think about building a community, it's really like about where are your users hanging out, and if you're working with developers, maybe Discord makes more sense, right? But yeah, if it's a consumer brand like Reddit could make sense, could be worth thinking about.
Yeah. But that's actually where you started out, right? Like I think we were using you early on to essentially bring the walls down on Slack and allow Google to index those pages. And this is a bit of a tangent from what we were talking about, but I think it's an interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, so for context, like Claude, we had sort of started out trying to build a community product that helped surface some of this social content in search, because we sort of identified this problem around there are all these great conversations happening in places like Discord and Slack. So how could we make some of that more accessible? And yeah, sort of through that journey of building that product, and we had a few customers with that, but through diving into that space, we had this observation right around all this social content, particularly in Reddit, starting to be pulled into AI search and ChatGPT and other conversational AI platforms like that. And we sort of made the shift to orient whole more around like that analysis piece around this new surface area around conversational AI, right? Because it was just clear like that is one of the fundamental limitations of these AI platforms is they don't have perspectives of real people. They don't have commentary from real people. They're just this model that you ask a question to and get something back, but you cannot get precise feedback and experiences of real people. So I think yeah, it's just really interesting around how these AI platforms are like trying to plug that gap by pulling in content from Reddit and other community places.
Yeah, I mean, it makes total sense. So you mentioned Wikipedia, you mentioned Reddit. Are there any other sources that you would recommend that founders be looking at in terms of starting to build up that body of work to be searchable?
Yeah, I think it's really about looking at what is driving the citations at the moment in the platforms that you care about. I think other depends on the vertical, but in a lot of software companies, like reviews are really important. So like could be G2 or Capterra or other review platform sites. And ensuring that your customers that you have a strategy there for your customers to like leave reviews, and because that's really again useful information. And that's really how a lot of people are using these AI platforms too, especially ChatGPT, and especially for software businesses. They're using this to like research tools, research solutions, build business cases for their bosses. A lot of the sales work is happening in these platforms. So for you to be successful in consumer conversational AI and to focus on like the highest leverage, highest impact areas, I would encourage you to think about how can you create content to just help someone make a purchasing decision, help someone evaluate you, help someone compare you alongside vendors. So we see all that content performing very well, like top 10 products in X category 2025, like X versus Y vendor. How should I think about choosing a provider for this or for that? Like all that sort of content is heavily cited because when someone is trying to research a solution, AI wants to pull from this body of like sources to help provide a relevant answer. So if you can think in those lenses, in that lens and in those terms, like I think that is the sort of principle that should be guiding the content you're creating if you want to stand out in ChatGPT.
So that's kind of going back to what you were saying earlier about creating listicles effectively that will help to guide your customer or potential customers. And does it matter where they live? Like if they're on your blog site, do they need to be linked to, or are you better off trying to find other people to host those kind of on your behalf?
Yeah, I think a combination of both. I think like you can publish these in your own site, like top 10, and you see it all the time and people sort of putting their product at number one. And I think everyone sort of expects that. I think this type of content can be a bit cringe or tacky, but it is valuable and it is what's working. So I think there are ways to like put it on your website in a way that's helpful for customers, maybe build out comparison pages like X versus Y vendor, things like that. But you can also consider a strategy of, looking at the existing articles that exist that aren't mentioning you out there. And you can do that through looking at the citations in whole, for example, and doing outreach and trying to get mentions on those articles. You can also, like, if you're publishing these articles yourself, you can often use that to barter a reciprocal sort of mention in these sort of articles. But yeah, I think it's really like about a rising tide lifts all boats with trying to surface visibility and mentions in a particular category. And I would worry less about, you mentioning your competitors in the same article or in the same surface area, and just ensuring that in the lists and in the context where your competitors are mentioned, you're also mentioned, right? Because if you're not there, I think that's the main problem.
Yeah, and I guess a lot of the time people will be searching for alternative to X provider, and so you would actually need to be mentioned alongside that provider in order to get noticed. I mean, I guess even going back to say a high street example, you'll see like there's one big bank and then suddenly the other three pop up next door to it because they kind of want to be affiliated in that. And if you're in one, then you see the branding of the other ones.
Totally, yeah. I think it's just about, being up there with your competitors and being mentioned and being one of those solutions that, you're being evaluated against. So then it's sort of up to you to like capture that lead, I suppose, and win on the things that you are trying to win on, whether that be, product or quality of experience or the traditional sort of things, right? But I think it's about primarily like showing up, right? Given a set of questions or a topic or a category, like, are you showing up? Like if you're not showing up, that's the problem. And then you can sort of go from there, I think.
What are the strategies that you're using? Because I guess you would also suffer from the same problem and have noticed the problem, and hence, I assume dog fooding your own product to see how you're coming up. Which is I think it's awesome when you can use your own tool. What are the strategies that you're implementing at Hall to kind of improve your own GEO, AEO, AI visibility?
Yeah, I think for us, it's about all the things I've sort of mentioned around creating guides and content to help folks with the buying journey and evaluating vendors and comparing vendors. So we are trying to publish more of that content on our own sort of properties, but then also, forming partnerships with other brands and other writers and other like influencers to have similar mentions on other properties for us. So I think, those are sort of the main things that I think are most beneficial for like software sort of companies. But yeah, I mean, there are other things too, like in other verticals, like digital PR can be really beneficial. So getting mentions in media publications, like a lot of ChatGPT especially will pull from a lot of media sources as citations. And I suspect that's probably because of a lot of the partnerships that OpenAI has struck with particular media brands. But yeah, I think for us, it's just about focusing on that the sort of the content in the areas that are going to be most commercially beneficial for us. So yeah, just equipping who we're trying to sell to with as much information as possible around like why they should consider us, basically.
So your kind of ICP, is it more like B2B type businesses, or do you go like B2C towards creators, or is it a mix of?
Yeah, it's a mix at the moment, and honestly, like we're probably still like figuring it out if we should focus on a particular ICP. In terms of our customer base, like we have in-house brands that the purchase has sort of come from like the CMO and the marketing team around like, this is AI, we should be like figuring out how we're showing up. We do sell to a lot of like SEO practitioners. Naturally, that's a fit. How Hall is very like similar to traditional SEO tools, or is designed in a similar way. So it's quite intuitive for SEO practitioners. And obviously they've seen a lot of their traffic disruptors, so they're looking to integrate some of these metrics for AI visibility into their processes. So selling to SEO practitioners in-house, but then also agencies are like a pretty big vertical. So agencies that are offering services and that again need reliable reporting and analysis for them to pass on to their clients. So yeah, I think we are trying to sell to many different folks. Something that I've been thinking a lot about lately is, should we focus on really understanding one of those particular types of customers and going deep in orientating the product around their needs specifically.
Are there any of those that kind of are you're noticing like more traffic from that type of customer or a bias towards one?
Yeah, I think we see a lot of agency customers. I think we've actually built our product to work really well for like managing multiple brands or multiple websites and multiple properties. So I think our product naturally works really well for that. For example, we could have gone down the approach around you sign up for Hall and it only works for like one brand, and then we've made all the product design decisions around that. So I don't think it was a deliberate decision, but that is really working well for us in that whole works quite well for like, SEO agencies who can manage multiple clients in the one sort of product.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense, right? Because kind of by a proxy, instead of getting one customer, you sort of get 20, especially if they can offload the cost in some way to that customer. They're effectively selling you on your behalf, which is kind of a nice model.
Totally, yeah. And I would say they're like probably more sophisticated customers in terms of like they're familiar with the tool, they're familiar with the metrics that we provide. There's like less education required than like maybe like lower intent, lower uh like folks with lower experience with like SEO, I think need a bit more education. So with where we're at the moment, it's like a natural fit to sell into those folks. I think we will want to eventually over time, like make the product more intuitive, more simple to understand for a beginner. But I think at the moment, it's pretty intuitive for those sort of folks to pick it up. So we're seeing a lot of success in selling to those people.
And I guess that with your being background in design, was it Atlassian? I think you were design there as well, weren't you? And Dovetail. So you've got to, in terms of creating products that have a good user experience, you've got a solid background there.
Yeah. So I was a designer at Atlassian for 3 years, and also at Intercom and at Dovetail for a brief period of time. I think design is an interesting one. I think honestly, like I'm spending a lot more time on the product design and the system design, and I think those aspects of design are really more important for early stage startups. Like these decisions around like what are the objects in the system of the product you're building, what is the relationship between everything within a product. Like I think that is almost like the more important stuff to focus on when you're building a product in the early stages. For example, like a lot of our user interface is just like off the shelf user interface elements because that's not particularly important, right? And spending engineering resources to build this custom UI library is not a particularly effective use of time at the stage we're at the moment. So I'm a product designer, but I've leveraged like a lot of off the shelf UI components because I understand that they'll give us velocity and try and spend a lot more design energy on the actual problems that we're solving with the features. And I guess like what we're unlocking through assembling all of that UI together, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, totally. And it's so important at the beginning. And I think especially as you were saying earlier with how fast the kind of AI landscape is moving, there's this kind of window, I suppose, that you need to get into fast, right? Because I'm sure there will be other competitors and the like that spin up. And I guess fortunately in your space, you probably don't have any, the big incumbent that's been around for 10 years that you're trying to top off the mantle. It gives you the opportunity to be the front runner in that space. And that means velocity is like doubly important.
Yeah, 100%. I think I think everyone sort of understands that the friction and the cost to produce high quality software is pretty low right now, especially with AI tooling. Like anyone can really pull together some sort of product, right? So I think everyone's playing from that base, right? So you need to be really thoughtful around where are you going to spend energy and what are the most important things for you to actually allocate like expensive engineering resources to, and like what are solved problems out there that you don't want to tackle. I think like designing a UI system is like part of that. I think doing billing, doing auth, user management, permissions, like all these things are not reasons why people buy your product, right? It's all.
I mean, the reasons people buy my product.
Well, yeah,
not, but
of
yeah,
course, yeah,
not
yeah.
why they buy.
But like, no one's you're not going to win or lose a deal.
Yeah.
Oh well, you might you will on the enterprise side of things, but there's no for an end user like no one. Or auth is auth, billing is billing, user management is user management. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. That's the kind of whole premise of it, really. I let people focus on their idea. So just hopping back to the pivot, I guess, so you stopped doing the surfacing of kind of communities in Google search, and you made this pivot to AI visibility. Was that still using anything that was there before, or was this like a full ground up rebuild?
Yeah, I think it was pretty much a ground up rebuild, but I think we're utilizing a lot of the same technologies from the engineering side of things. So a lot of the experience with tech stack, I think, is carried over, and infrastructure around that. So I think that's been beneficial. But yeah, at some point you just sort of like, you have to make the decision and just like, is it going to be quicker to like try and, reshape what you've already built, or just start from scratch and uh, you know, just start from scratch and figure it out. I guess from first principles. So yeah, that's sort of what we ended up doing.
Yeah. And was everybody on board with that decision?
Yeah, I think so. I think like we'd like learned a lot, and we were seeing AI search and the adoption of ChatGPT playing out, and I think everyone sort of had the sense that this was something that we should be going all in on, and which is really promising. I think what's really beneficial too with this new product is it's very easy for us to show like value to a potential customer. Like the time to value is super short because we can basically pull together a project in whole from your domain name, from some keywords that you care about, and like give you data around how you're showing up in literally like under 10 minutes. So like the time to value is super short too. And I think what is really cool with this product that we're building now is it just really, the sales process is very different in how we talk to customers, and we can do that like through the product. Whereas the product we were building, although we were initially building, had a bit longer of a time to value. Like it required a lot of investment for folks to get value from it.
Yep.
They needed to commit to it up front. So I think, yeah, it's just really interesting to think about that too, around like how you design the product and the space you're building in, like how that informs how you sell it and what the time to value is for customers in terms of like getting set up and rolling it out and becoming a paying customer.
Yeah, I think that aha moment is just so important for people just to get it kind of straight away. And I can see what you mean. I suppose if you were building a community, it could take a while before you've actually got community pages that are valuable, that you even want indexed by Google in the first place. Like there is, so for someone that's early stage, especially, it could take a while before that body of work is there. Whereas people are searching for stuff all the time. So there will always be something that comes up for the terms that you care about. So even if they're at a blank slate stage, you can still actually show them value off the bat, even if they haven't built their product yet. In theory, they could use you to see, okay, well, I'm validating my idea before I've even started coding anything, in theory.
Totally. Yeah. 100%. I think, the data we have available and that we can draw insights from, we can like pull together, in literally under a minute in a lot of cases. And you can use it as a research tool, a discovery tool. You can use it to analyze how your competitors are performing, how you're performing. And we see like a lot of our agency customers, they're trying to win clients, and they'll often like do reports in whole and say like, hey, you're not showing up, your competitors are, here's the data, like, do you want to become a client of ours? So how we sell to our customers is very similar to how our customers are selling to their clients if they're an agency.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, because I guess if you're seeing that you're not there, then suddenly you're immediately interested in, well, what is this tool? How do I buy it? How do I find out how I'm showing up?
Totally, yeah, 100%.
So the MVP of the AI visibility version, what did that look like compared to how it is now? How did you think about deciding what would go into that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm just trying to think around whether we even thought of it as like in terms of MVPs, or like I'm trying to like think back to how we thought about it. I think like it's really just been an incremental process. I think like I think it's just about how do we get the data in? What is the so whole works by like going to all these different conversational AI platforms and basically asking a set of questions and getting that response back and like analyzing it. So that's like the core experience that we needed to build the infrastructure around to like collect that data and make sure that was stored in a really like sensible way and a scalable way. So we really focused on getting that right, because everything else, like all the reporting and all the other features, are sort of built on top of that foundation, right? So I think that's sort of how we thought about it. It's like, how can we collect this large data set of information that we know is going to enable us to build interesting features and interesting visualizations on top of that, and spend a lot of time ensuring that that data collection piece was really like solid, and then be a bit more iterative and flexible in the different ways that we visualize that data, in collaboration with our customers too. Like we get requests for like, hey, it would be good if we could have this report and featured in this way, and we'll, can go and ship that like pretty quickly, right? Because we've spent or invested in, to say that data infrastructure piece, which everything sort of relies on.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And so did that mean you were able to release it earlier and then sort of start to add on these features as you went? Like once you had that initial, you get the data set in, and then you can effectively allow some customers to try it out and then build on the reporting and
Totally, yeah. I think like my whole sort of approach and philosophy is like Hall is a self-serve product. Like you can sign up for free and like use it. Like you don't need to talk to sales. I think we're committed to like building a product, and we wanted to like get something early out there. So literally, I think it took a couple months maybe to just get like the first version where someone can sign up and that piece was working. And then as people are signing up, you'll like reach out to them, get their feedback, understand like why did they come here, what do they want, and just sort of iterate from that. And I'm a big fan of like you just need to like get what you're building out in the world and just figure it out and go from there. I think, and just reducing the friction for folks to like. I think a lot of founders have a lot of tendency to, you see all the faults with your products and you see all the problems with it. And even now, I like go and see all the problems with it. I think that can stop you from putting it out in front of people and being like, oh, I just need this or that, or like this isn't good enough. But I think you do need to sort of just reach acceptance, I think, and just put it out in front of the world and just sort of see what happens and figure it out. And just don't worry about what your customers think too. Like you're not burning leads or burning customers if they come through and have a bad experience, like, or whatever, like whatever you're fearful of, whatever reason you're telling yourself not to, put it out in front of customers. Cause like people have such short attention spans, and like, I've emailed like the same customer, like, several times over the last, 12 months, and they don't remember who you are when you like follow up again. They'll be like, hey, do you want to try that now? Like, just, I think a lot of founders think about what they're doing is like everyone else sees it the way that they do, but honestly, like a lot of people don't care what you're doing, and a lot of people don't remember what you're doing. So
most people probably.
yeah, you just gotta get on with it and keep going and just figure it out.
Yeah, 100%. So that kind of 2 months to get that version together that you were then putting in front of customers, like what sort of team size were you at to build that out in 2 months?
Pretty small team, just a couple engineers. I think, I think like we have raised a bit of money, but we're also trying to be pretty capital efficient until we see certain like, or at least at the time, until we saw sort of certain measures of success or momentum or progress on like on the customer and commercial side of things. So we've sort of progressively sort of hit those goals, and now the team is like 4 people. We've got folks helping out with go-to-market. We're hiring for like a few more roles. So that's sort of how we've approached it. But I think the team, like we could, like you can achieve a lot with like 2 people now. Like I've been working with software teams for like, several years, and with AI and just also all the different services and infrastructure pieces that you can just outsource to at the moment, you can get a lot done with very few people. And just the amount of problems that you can just outsource, that are not relevant to like the core thing you're trying to build, like auth, like identity, like all those things we're talking about, and just unlock so much velocity. So yeah, I think almost like when you're that small and trying to figure it out early and build this first version, I think smaller teams are probably better than, or you can achieve more faster with less people, to be honest, than a large team.
Yeah, for sure, and a lot less red tape as well, and you can be way more nimble, and there's huge amounts of advantages. So those initial hires then of that small team, you're a solo founder. That's right.
Yeah, solo founder. Yeah.
So I guess expanding that team immediately doubles your team size to 100% bigger than it is when it's just you. So what were you looking for when you were onboarding those first few critical hires?
Yeah, I think like obviously, if you're hiring an engineer, they need to be like a competent engineer. But I think when it comes to like hiring folks for early stage startups, I think the approach that I take is just really outline all the problems with all the problems and all the work that needs to be done, and just be super clear about and upfront around like, this is what the work looks like. This is what we'll be doing like every day. And just like, here's how we work. Here's what this could look like, and just be super upfront and transparent and open as possible around like what that looks like. So the expectations are sort of like kind of clear, and like everyone sort of knows what they're getting themselves into, if that makes sense. And there are like no surprises like when you join. And I think the right sort of person is like excited by that, and is like comfortable with the ambiguity, and is like keen to get stuck in and figure it out. And I think if you outline all the problems and all the challenges and all the work ahead, if they like are still interested by the time you like outline all of that and they back themselves to do it, I think they're like the right hire, at least for like the first few hires. So that's sort of the approach that I take.
Yeah, for sure. And were they engineers, or what sort of skill sets were you looking for?
Yeah, engineers. So I think in terms of like the calibration of the team, like my background in product and design, and like I'm somewhat technical. I can't build like a full stack application from nothing, you know what I mean? But have worked a lot with engineers, and yeah, not yet, yeah, maybe. But yeah, I think just engineers basically. I think when you're starting out, I think you need to just be focused on product and R&D, and well, you need to, if you have confidence and clarity in the problem you're solving and who you're building for, and that people want to buy what you're building for too. So, we sort of had that confidence, and I was doing a lot of the discovery and sales stuff and all that in parallel, but yeah, I think all engineering, software companies are nothing without engineers. They're the most important hire. So yeah.
So yeah, that's where you started. Yeah, makes sense. So then you built this, we won't call it an MVP, or we call it first version.
Yeah, first version. I think like the bare minimum amount, like something that an assembly of features that someone can like sign up for and use by themselves, basically.
Yeah, the minimum sellable product.
Yeah.
So how did you then look at getting your first customer?
Yeah, I think a bunch of different things. I think leveraging your network is probably like the most intuitive thing. Like, are there people in your network locally that would be willing to try it out and use it? I think that's the most sensible place to start. I think sometimes folks in your network maybe have less motivation and appetite to maybe use the product because they maybe don't have that immediate need, but I think it can be a good place to start. It's just getting folks using it and giving feedback. I think after that, really just like targeted prospecting and outreach, to be honest, just like looking through LinkedIn, looking for people that, fit the criteria of that we believe would be interested in a product and feature like this. And just getting them on a call and just like walking through what we're building and getting their feedback and seeing what the appetite is to progress and go forward. And that's still what we're doing today, to be honest. Like, we do it in a bit more of a scaled way. And we have a bit more automation around that to make it so it's less bespoke. But I think, if you can really understand like who you're building for and who you're selling to, and have a really crisp articulation of that, I think the outreach becomes so much easier, and the people that you should be talking to, just becomes clearer. And you should really be getting to like a yes, or like a, I want to hear more about what you're selling. And if you're not hearing that, I think then like you have more work to do probably. But yeah, that's sort of how it worked out for us. I mean, this product and this idea, like, and what we were building, like, we felt that immediately, right? But in the older, more community focused product, the user generated content product, like that was a bit more of a challenge. Like, we see it here and there, but I think to compare those two experiences of the products we're building, like, the problem of like people having their businesses and their channels being disrupted by AI generated answers in Google search, like that is an immediate need for folks. It's something that people like want to solve. It has like really close like proximity to revenue, right? Like this is people losing money because of this, right? And if you even are presenting some sort of solution that can either like help stop them from losing money or like make more money, people are going to pay attention, I think.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned then that you initially it was kind of yourselves doing the outreach, and now you've made it more automated and scalable. I'm curious what that looks like.
Yeah, so I think it's about just automating the sort of folks that we reach out to. So, based on the criteria we have, whether that be agencies or in-house brands or SEO people or marketers, and yeah, gathering basically their contact information through. There's a bunch of like enrichment and marketing automation tools about that. I'm sure there's a bunch of podcasts that go into depth around how to execute that. I'm not an expert at it, but at a high level, that's like what we've done, and then automate that outreach and just have a really tight and valuable offer that we can give to folks. And basically, a lot of our contact is like, hey, do you want to see like how you're showing up in ChatGPT, or like are you seeing referral traffic from ChatGPT, or have you been affected by has your Google traffic gone down? And basically present just something that they can easily say yes to. That's like, hey, we can show you how you look like in ChatGPT, and just be valuable and helpful, and something that's easy for them to say yes to. And you're not trying to really, I mean, obviously people understand I think they're being sold to, but there's not that immediate sale that you're trying to drive, right? You're just trying to be helpful and be valuable and show them something interesting, right? That's going to get them to pay attention. And that's what's worked well for us. And again, that the time to value of the product we're building is like super short. And it's really easy to get a really simple offer that we can like send to folks. So I think it depends on like the sort of business you're building and the vertical you're operating in, whether something like that will work. But it's working well for us.
What was the moment where you were like, yes, we've got something here?
Yeah, I think it's just the response rate, basically. Like if you email 100 people and 20 of those people are replying, I think you've got like a pretty tight, pretty compelling offer, especially when, these people don't know who you are, right? And there's no reason for them to reply. And people get lots of emails every day from like random people. So I think, yeah, and reflecting on it, I think it is just about having something that's really simple and really easy for them to say yes to, and like low commitment. And then obviously like this is the first step. Then there's a bunch of work around like how do you actually get them on board and move them through the funnel and get them to a sale and all of that. But I think for a lot of early stage startups, like just building that pipeline on that top of funnel is like one of the hardest parts.
Yeah, definitely is. I think a lot of startups struggle with. I think a lot of businesses struggle with that. Even established ones, kind of at this stage, especially. I think the landscape has just changed so dramatically over the last couple of years, but probably I'd say like the last year to 6 months just seems to have been on like another level.
Yeah, 100%. I do think it's like, I think everyone's probably felt this, but I feel like at the time, like at the moment, it's probably one of the hardest times to be building like a software business. I think, yeah, I think it's not so much that like it's easier to build software. And I think because of that, there's more software out in the world, which is fine. But I think the problem is that a lot of people are just trying to sell to the same buyers and are trying to sell to the same people. And there's just so much noise and saturation with people just being bombarded by like SaaS and software products and things like that. So it's like, it's easy to build software, but like the distribution is harder. Whereas I think, 10 years ago, it was kind of like harder to build software. But because of that, like people kind of excited when you build something and they were keen to like try it, and like they'd be more willing to like play around. But I think that dynamic has sort of shifted now where like there's so much software and people are sick of hearing about it, and people don't really care about like your SaaS, right? And it's just, there's so many things out there, it's like people don't care. Whereas I think 10 years ago, like tech and SaaS was like kind of cool, right? People wanted to try it. I think AI is maybe a bit different, like where like people are like motivated to try out AI things now because they feel like they should be doing stuff with AI. But there's again just so much AI stuff out there too. Like how do you cut through?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a large degree of software fatigue where, as you say, there's just so much out there, all kind of doing the same thing. And I've heard like a lot of AI businesses are struggling at the minute to get anyone to not be on a monthly plan. and to sign up yearly, because you don't want to commit to something for a year when you know, oh, well, there's probably going to be a better tool next month. And so that hopping between tools, especially when they are offering free trials, like, oh, well, I'll try this one for free for a month and then the next one for free for a month. And if it's not something that's business critical, like if it's spinning up video clips or I don't know, something that is fairly interchangeable, it's not really a sticky product. And you are seeing more and more of those, especially as I've been starting this podcast. I've seen like there's so much tooling around for all the individual elements of it that you could, in theory, use a different one for free every month for like 3 years and never have to pay for anything.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, even the product that we're building, to be honest, like it's very portable. Like folks can leave, and yeah, like on sales calls, depending on the customer or the prospect, I sort of have to be like, well, you know, if it doesn't work out, you can take your data and like plug it into something else, and that's fine. We know we have to win on product. We've got a big engineering team. We're just like and that's kind of the pitch, Like I think it takes a long time, I think, now to build like a sticky product, and it's a combination of, it's not even just a product, it's like a sticky business. Like people want to sort of see you win. And I think that's where like to our earlier discussion around like building a community, building customers that really love you, building customers that feel part of like building the product with you. I think that stuff can really separate you from competitors and help you retain customers long term. But it's definitely a tricky time to be building software. I mean, even on larger ACVs and stuff, like a lot of companies now, like they're trying to do like the annual contract, but then they're like designing opt-outs throughout the year where folks can like opt out. So it still allows them to like say they've got X amount of annual revenue, but it's not really, because there are all these like kind of exit paths. So you're
Yeah,
seeing some creative accounting too, I think, with like traditional SaaS metrics.
yes, yeah, definitely. And then as soon as you do try and quit, there's like, oh, well, we'll give you the rest of the year for free, or we'll give you half price, or whatever it is. And suddenly, like, what, can you just have offered me that at the start? And then maybe I wouldn't have been shopping around in the first place.
Yeah, totally.
So in terms of, I guess, protecting yourself and kind of putting that moat around your business, what are the things? I mean, you mentioned community and that side of things. Is there any, I guess, secret sauce that kind of keeps all front of the pack?
Yeah, it's a good question. We're still trying to figure out the secret sauce, to be honest. Like I think it's something like we're still pretty young, pretty early. I think at the end of the day, it's just about engineering velocity and product velocity, and can you build a really good team that can execute things quickly and react to things quickly. I think in the space that we're building in, like how everyday ordinary people are using ChatGPT, for example, is like we're just at the beginning of that, right? And it's just early days. And for us, it's about how can we build tooling, features, capabilities that help businesses maximize how people are using these platforms. And for us, it's just about, how can we react quickly? How can we respond to these changes that are happening, and just really execute better and just win with the quality of our execution and the speed of our execution. But, the more, I think it's something you have to figure out, right? I think, quite frankly, we've built this product in over 6 months, less than a year. Like it's inherently not going to be that sticky, right? If we can build it in that amount of time, like
Yeah.
we're smart people, but like we're not like exceptionally smart, right? And a lot of other people can figure out, what we've done too, you know what I mean? So I think it is just part of figuring it out, right? And I don't think you should kid yourself too. Like if you built a product in 3 months, 6 months, there's no real reason it's not going to be sticky, right? Because you've done it that quickly. So
Yeah. And I guess as the technology evolves, that 6 months comes down to 3, comes down to 1, comes down to I've done it in a prompt. I guess I don't know. I don't know how long the timeline is before it gets to that point, but theoretically.
totally. And then it becomes sort of like, where are the things outside of product where you can differentiate and win on? Like, is it go to market? Is it your pricing? Is it like a self-serve motion? Is it distribution? Like, I think one of the things that a lot of companies sleep on is like, instead of having engineering teams just focused on building like the core product that is behind like, the login screen, like how can you actually deploy engineering resources to drive distribution, to drive growth? What are the things you could be building on your marketing website? How, calculators, demo versions of the product, things that can be shared, like really
Yeah,
like,
I love you have that tool on your website where you can just plug your domain into it straight away. And so, I mean, that's so smart.
yeah, totally. Like you can go and plug in your domain. It like generates like a rough sort of directional estimate of like how you're performing across AI. Like we need to be doing more of that, but I think like that performs and works really well for us, right? And we get a lot of signups through that. And I think there are so many more things you can do like that that you can do, yeah, that are like that if you've got engineering resources. Like I think it's an interesting thought exercise if you're a founder to be like, hey, let's pause on the product for like, a week or like a month. Like what are the things that we would build like outside of the product, leveraging engineering that could like grow the business? I think that's like an interesting thought exercise. And, that's where sort of moats are built, I think.
Mm-hmm. It's
Uh,
very easy to, if you're not growing, to blame it on the features and like, oh, if we only had this one other feature, then we'd be killing it. But a lot of the time, as you say, it does actually come down to the distribution and actually getting people in that top of funnel. And probably your product is fine as it is. Um,
Totally. Yeah. And I think like people aren't probably interacting with your features, man. Like they don't see most of the features you build. Like you're not probably losing deals because of the features. Like it's probably other things, it's not really products. I don't know. And these are generalizations, right? I mean, who knows? It depends. It depends. Everything depends. But yeah, I think there's just like a lot of leverage, especially in a time when like everything is so saturated and everyone's trying to sell to the same people. Like, how can you build scalable tricks, with an engineering team to acquire more customers and get more awareness, get more visibility? Yeah.
yeah, no, I love that thinking. I have to take that back to the team. We have a few tools on there like JWT verifies and a few bits and bobs, but there's nothing like prominent on the homepage. And when I saw yours earlier, I was like, oh, that's smart. There's definitely some takeaways there that kind of allow people to, well, they even get a taste for your product straight away or what's possible straight away, which I think is really cool. And I know like a lot of these AI tools do that. They'll have the chat boxes right there, and then the next phase is gated. But even if you're not building an AI product, like how can you think along those lines where that, as you described it earlier, that kind of time to value is minimized, and it probably is something that's not gated.
Yep. For sure. And it can be like adjacent to the core product that you're offering. Like think of it as maybe like a separate, entirely different product that's a bit more lightweight that you could build for free, make it available, and build some sort of funnel around that would then cause someone to graduate into their own product. Like, I mean, this is what Canva's done and how Canva's been successful. They're building all these tools, all these utilities that are at top of funnel and then graduate them into their primary product. Like that is all that's all engineering resources that team is deployed to build that stuff, right? And that's not the core product. These are just, things to acquire more customers with, right? So yeah, I think it's really, really high leverage if you can figure out the right things to build.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. We touched a few times on kind of how fast everything's moving, especially in the AI space. Like, how are you kind of personally keeping up and on top of that technology and those shifts? That I guess for your product, it's especially important.
Yeah, it's tricky. I feel like just for us it's yeah, for us it's difficult. I think like LinkedIn is a really good place. I think like LinkedIn, the content that I get on LinkedIn is like really helpful, like seeing what folks are saying and yeah, just the voices on LinkedIn from the experts we're trying to sell to is like really beneficial. I think for us it's I think like I wish we had more time to sort of experiment with different technologies and do more experimental like throwaway kind of work, and leverage more tooling and with new technologies that are coming out on the dev side, infra side of things. I think that is probably like where we can do more of that. I think that's really hard when you like have these core features and this core roadmap that you're trying to build, and then you sort of you know how to execute that work, and you just sort of have to get on with it. But then I think that comes at the cost for maybe some of this time you could be allocating for like experimental sort of exploratory work, that engineers could be doing that might actually unlock new ways to execute features that other folks and other competitors aren't even thinking about, right? So that's something I sort of try to struggle with, those sort of allocation decisions there around like staying on top of things. But yeah, I find LinkedIn's pretty good, and um, yeah, I think being off like Twitter is good too. Like I don't go on Twitter anymore. I think that there's also like you don't want to be too across some stuff too. I think like you can get in like a bad way if you say like it can be nice to sort of like not know what's going on in certain areas of like I don't know startups or founders or like tech or bubbles and uh in San Francisco or whatever, you know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a balancing act between um, those worlds. I mean, I've been very late to social media, we'll call it. I signed up to Instagram a couple of weeks ago. X I've had basically dormant for years, and then LinkedIn was basically just sat there for recruiters every now, like, but haven't needed that really for years either. And then probably in the last 2 months, I've just sort of started getting into that world, and I don't know, it's a bit of a minefield. I think it can easily turn into quite a time sink.
Yeah. And I think it can like yeah, I think it's like you like a lot of these platforms too. It's like I think it's kind of unhealthy. They can lead you to comparing yourself and comparing how like you obviously see all these people creating all this great content or like talking about their successes, and I think consuming too much of that can really put you in a bad way. And a lot of that stuff is just not a reflection of reality, right? And people aren't totally forthcoming around their journey and all the work that's gone to get to them to a certain place. So I think it's about just being mindful of that sort of stuff too. I think if you're a founder and starting out and yeah, just trying to figure it out, like there is something to be said for just like, locking in and just getting stuck in and just focusing on your world and just executing well. But, I think that only obviously works too if you're like executing in the right direction too. You don't particularly want to like shut everything out and go down the wrong path. So it's tricky.
Yeah,
It's
it's
tricky.
true, especially if you are at the same time trying to optimize for GEO. So you're on Reddit posting, I'm not sure if LinkedIn is factored in. It's probably not, I assume, because it's kind of dated. But I suppose some of it you mentioned earlier that some social platforms are. So it's almost a necessary evil in some regards.
Totally. Yeah. And I think it's hard if you're like a small team, like, so like just a founder starting out, like there are so many surface areas that you could be focusing on if you're trying to like grow your business. I think it's hard. Like that's a full-time job in itself, is just to be across all this stuff, commenting on stuff, like being present, like having being the personality that is often required now. Like we were just talking about this, like the founder sort of selling the business is part of like a lot of the marketing today. So yeah, that's a full-time job in itself, and you got to do that, and you have to like build the product and everything else. So it's definitely a hard time, I think, to be building a software company.
Is that something that you're leaning into yourself, that kind of founder-led marketing, or?
Uh, I find it quite uncomfortable. Like I don't particularly want to be like the personality driving the business. I think it's a scale. I don't want to be that extreme. But yeah, I think you always need to be doing more of it. I need to be doing more of it. I think for me, yeah, it sort of comes in waves. Like I think like there'll be a period where I'm like very consistent and focused on it, and then maybe my focus will shift to be more on product or more on like other parts of the business. But I think it sort of comes in these cycles. I think I don't know if that's particularly a good thing. I think consistency across all those things is probably better, but that's sort of how I'm operating at the moment with it. But yeah, I think for some people it's supernatural for you to be like out there selling the thing, sharing your journey, especially with like younger like Zoomers, TikTok generation, all that sort of stuff, right? I think like that's sort of intuitive and more natural to them, whereas I think all the folks and all the millennials, I think, find it a bit uncomfortable. But I don't know. You just got to do it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm definitely in that same camp as you, where it's not my happy place, but kind of forcing myself through it. And I think your cycles example is interesting. I'm doing very short cycles at the minute, so each cycle is a day. So I'll do like a day of product development, a day of some trying to put some content together, maybe a day of some product demos, then another day of deep product work. And that way it's still a cycle, but I'm not feeling fully like I'm being pulled in 10 directions. I did try sort of doing an hour here, hour there, or splitting the day into morning this, afternoon that. But then if something derailed my morning, then inevitably the marketing wouldn't happen because that was my least happy place. So yeah, I found kind of keeping those cycles short has enabled me to be actually fairly productive in each of those areas. Because I'm like, well, I have this day for product development. So by the end of the day, I need to have something. Whereas if I'm like, well, I've got a week to do this, then I'll probably drag my feet a little bit more with it.
Yeah, yeah. How do you find like balancing reactive work with proactive work? Like, how does that fit in with this? Because that's something I feel like I struggle with. I think some days it's just like I'm reacting to everything. There's nothing I have control over. But yeah, like, how are you finding that balance?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. There was an Alex Hormozy quote I read in one of his books, I think it was, which was some fires you just have to let burn, which I thought was interesting and maybe forcing you to be a little bit less reactive, which is very easy to do. That's the thing, like to jump on these things and to kind of step back and be like, okay, but what should the priority be? Is it just because there is a little fire over there, or is it okay? Like, will it be fine till tomorrow, actually? And trying to take a little bit of that into it. Of course, like there's different sizes of fires, and some of those you don't really have a choice but to jump on top of. But I try and set my intention at the start of the day and then not open Slack or email too much through the day. And then if somebody really needs me, then they call me and then I'm like, okay, well, I know this fire's one that I need to react to.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, makes sense.
um, would you have any tips for somebody like a founder that's trying to balance kind of investing their time in GEO versus I mean, there's so many bits that we've talked about, but obviously GEO is kind of your domain. So how they should be balancing that with all the other parts that go into building a successful product.
Yeah, I mean, to start with, it's probably just about thinking about just establishing a baseline. So, like, sign up for a product like Call, look at the free plan, enter some questions that are relevant for your business, and just sort of see what is happening, how it's performing. And then I think some other things you can look into whether this is going to be a channel that's worth investing in is like, are you already getting referral traffic from ChatGPT? How much is it converting? How much, like, we're seeing a lot of customers that I talk to, the overall traffic that is being referred from these platforms is lower compared to like traditional Google search, but it's converting at like double digits, right? So depending on the maturity of your business, just looking at that information can be a pretty clear signal around whether this is something you would want to invest more in or not. But what I would also say is, like, the work you do to perform in AI search is not really mutually exclusive with other marketing work, right? So if you're trying to get customers to leave reviews, if you're executing a community strategy on Reddit, if you're, writing comparison guides and listicles and sales enablement material that you're publishing, like, all of that is useful content that you can distribute at the end of sales calls or in different contexts on email newsletters, whatever. But all that content is also really beneficial for AI search. So I think what you can maybe just sharpen up is just spending a bit of time to understand like how AI search works, what's performing at the moment, and that can just maybe help you prioritize the marketing efforts that you're already doing, and maybe you bring forward a few things that you wouldn't otherwise do because those things have benefit and impact in AI search. I think that's how I think about it. But yeah, I think just focusing on that and just focusing on what commercially makes the most sense to your business. Like, if your users aren't using ChatGPT, if you don't think your users are using ChatGPT to like find information about you or research you or like learn about you, it's probably not, honestly, probably not worth like spending a lot of time on. And it all depends, right?
It's interesting because it will start to evolve over time, I suspect. So, I was speaking to a tradie mate of mine, he's a Sparky coach, and we were talking a little bit in and around AI, and it hasn't really hit that industry yet. Like, there is just a lot more traditional search going on. And I was kind of saying to him, yeah, but it's kind of getting pushed on you because you'll do a Google search and you get a Gemini result, and it is going to be reading from your Google reviews. It is going to be doing these other things. So even if you're just in that industry and starting to do a little bit now, and it compounds, like you were saying earlier, like it will compound over time, so that by the time it does do like a full-fledged assault on that industry, you've actually already kind of racked up that collateral that's ready and GEO ready to go.
Yeah, totally. I think it's just about doing marketing work, right? At bare minimum, like I think if you do that work, you're going to be picked up by these agents, by these AI systems. Sorry, and yeah, I think starting to like just test it, play around with it as new versions of AI assistants and tools are released. Like just pretend you're a customer and like go in there and like ask a question and be like, hey, what is the best this for that, and just see if you show up. I mean, tools like Hall can help automate that sort of research at scale, but yeah, I think just keeping and just imagining and running through that scenario and like your customers, how would they find you, and going through that and just seeing what happens, seeing if you're showing up, and using that to figure out the sort of stuff you should be doing to increase your presence.
I mean, that's just great advice for product development in general as well. Even when you're building it, putting yourself in your user's shoes instead of yourself as a domain expert and thinking like, how do they navigate through the product? It's almost in kind of all facets of it now, from marketing to product, like just putting yourself in your user's shoes.
Totally, yeah. And there's so many good tools that can help with that too. Like if you're building a software product, like session replays and things like that can help you like see how users are actually using the product. And yeah, it's quite confronting, because you obviously know so much about how your product works, and you have so much implicit knowledge and assumptions, and then to have someone totally new come through the product and ask a question around why does this thing work this way, and you're like, what do you mean? Like, isn't it obvious? Like that, I think it teaches you a lot of humility, and yeah, I think yeah, it's the best sort of feedback, to be honest. But yeah, it's like it's good to be reminded of that.
Yeah, for sure. It can be quite humbling. And just when you've been in it, I mean, you guys have been going for a few years. We've been going 4 now. So you definitely just get to know all the kind of ins and outs and how everything works. And obviously you get like different tiers of customer as well. Like for ones that have used similar products, they might just jump in and then they're absolutely fine. And then I don't know if you find this, but we definitely find, say, on the free tier, that consumes most of our support time. Whereas on the paid plans where people maybe have teams or they're a bit more familiar with that sort of tooling, they're paying you, but taking up 0 support time. So how do you, assuming you have that as a similar issue to us, how do you juggle that? And how do you even juggle support with a small team?
Yeah. I think that's pretty consistent. I think a lot of people share that, free plan. It depends on the product, but in a lot of cases, yeah, free users sort of want the world, they don't want to pay for it, and they're pretty demanding in terms of support load. And then, the larger customers, yeah, I think more of the support load on the larger customers is around like trying to close them as a customer, right? But once they're closed, for the most part, a lot of them can be pretty low touch. But yeah, in terms of like support, yeah, we're still dealing with like volumes where we can manage a lot of that internally. We have like rotation, different folks like, jump in to do support. We have like live chat. We're not even enabling any of the like AI sort of responses in the live chat. Like we just respond to everything personally at the moment. And yeah, it's but yeah, the we don't get too much support given like the active users that we actually serve. Like that sort of ratio, I think like we're doing pretty well. But yeah, I think it's bringing engineers into customer conversations and support, I think is like definitely a good thing to do too, just in terms of like making sure that the folks building the products are connected to how people are using it. Like definitely a good use of time, I think.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely been something we've adopted as well. I mean, whether or not engineers always love it or not, I don't know. But I think it works well both ways, not just for the customer feeling like they're speaking to somebody that knows the product and knows what, can actually solve their problem, but also for the engineer when they then go back to start building a thing to really understand the customer needs. Like it's kind of one of those win-wins. Well, it's kind of win-win for everyone except the bank balance, I guess, because they probably are the most expensive support people you could hire.
100%. But I think it's worth it though. I think fundamentally the people building the product need to understand who they're building it for. And I think it also helps with like kind of motivation and morale too. Like instead of the engineers just being off in this room building the product, they're actually connected to like who they're building it for and why, and can have that feedback around like solving a customer issue, and then be really happy and stoked about it, and like that close the loop as to like why we're actually doing this, which I think you can lose maybe when you're in the weeds of like solving this gnarly technical problem in some like third party library or whatever, you know what I mean? Like you maybe stop to think like, why are we doing this? And I think being put in front of a customer, I think can, brings clarity to all of that.
Yeah, for sure. Like we'll sometimes bring customers into our all hands meetings as well to speak to them and find out how they're using us and kind of learn lessons from them. And that's kind of like another great morale boost, because it's easy to forget like the actual impact that you're having on businesses. So that's some advice I'd give to someone else that's thinking about how they can bring the customer closer, but maybe without taking up everyone's time. Like you can always bring that customer to you and involve them in a meeting that you already have scheduled, and that then broadcast to the whole team kind of the importance of what they're doing.
Yeah, totally. 100%. Yeah. I think that stuff is like, it's easy for that to maybe be a bit of an afterthought, but I think it's definitely something, especially as your team gets larger, to be really thoughtful about.
I've got a couple more questions for you and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, no worries.
So this one's just kind of around your biggest lesson so far. What would be one lesson you've learned building Hall that you would pass on to an early stage founder that's building right now?
Yeah, it's a good question. One lesson, I think it's honestly a lot of the stuff that we've spoken about. I think about distribution, think about how people are going to discover your products, think about how you can leverage engineering resources to like drive growth. Yeah, just what are the things that matter, don't matter, time to value. Just I think of the business you're building not in the terms of like just the product in isolation, and everyone working together across all the different pieces to build a business. I think that's the lesson that I've reflecting a lot on, and just thinking about what and all these things I think are just so much more relevant when you're trying to build a software company in 2025, right? I think that's the main lesson. I think relative to other companies I worked at like Atlassian and Dovetail and Intercom, I just think it really requires that sort of approach. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, last question. I'm a bit of a music nut. I kind of just love listening to music to get me in the zone when I'm building products. I'm putting together a bit of a playlist from the founders that I speak to. So just learning, if you give me like a song or a track that kind of helps get you in the zone, I'd love that.
Yeah, in the zone. I don't know. I've been through a lot of Bonobo lately, so like,
Oh, yep.
yeah, I think Bonobo is pretty good. Like any album, I think Migration is probably my favorite. I think, but I think In Black Sands is like or Black Sands is like another good album. So I think those are good. Yeah, sort of softer, sort of electronic, sort of like that doesn't occupy the brain too much. Like that's the sort of tunes that I listen to. So yeah, I reckon check out anything by Bonobo. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, get it added. All right. So where can people check you out, find you?
Yeah, for sure. So if you want to try out Hall, you can sign up for the free plan, and you can like punch in 25 questions, see how you're showing up. We're at usehall.com, like USE hall.com. We'll probably get the .com one day, who knows. We'll try. But yeah, you can try us out there, and then if you want to get in touch with me, like you can find me on LinkedIn. Happy to chat. But Hall if you Google us, or punch in the .com, you should be able to check us out.
Will I be ChatGPTing you, right?
Yeah, you can try ChatGPT. Hopefully we show up. That would be like a really bad like that's like
the main product demo. Put it in, you're like, oh wait.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Awesome. All right, thanks so much for your time, Kai. Love the chat.
All right, yeah, great to chat, Dave. Take it easy.
Cheers.
Bye.
See ya. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, feel free to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also visit our website at morefounders.show for all previous episodes and more information about the show. Thanks again. See you in the next one.